Souls. What up? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Rachael Alexander. If you're new to me, come and take a sip of your favorite drink and paint with me. So have you ever felt like you had to choose between just one of your passions? Are you a multi-passionate who finds that you struggle with trying to fit into the boxes that society has created for you? What if it wasn't true? What if you didn't actually have to choose between your passions? That's exactly what I'm going to talk about in today's video. So before we dive in, if you're new to this channel, my name is Rachael Alexander and I'm an artist and Mosaic Soul mentor. And basically that just means I'm a multi-passionate spiritual entrepreneur, spiritual being, spiritual entity existing on this planet in this human form for a very short stint in time. And I'm here to be all of me without apology. So if you're new to the whole term Mosaic Souls, Mosaic Soul just simply means that you are a multi-passionate, multi-dimensional, multifaceted being having this temporary human experience. And part of your Mosaic Soul nature is that you would like to embody your divinity while in human form. And oftentimes that looks like embodying various different aspects of yourself, being multifaceted, being multi-passionate as well. And a lot of that is learning how to do it without apology and embracing your multi-dimensional nature while here in this human form, right? So that's what a Mosaic Soul is. So if you resonate, then welcome to the party, because today we're going to talk about why you shouldn't have to choose between your many passions. And we'll even dive into the times when choosing, or more so focusing in on a couple, is necessary. So let's dive in. So in this video, I really want to dive into why it's important to follow your many passions, tips on focusing when building a business, and how embracing your passions can really lead to a fulfilling life. And so let's talk about the struggle, right? Most of the Mosaic Souls I know struggle with their Mosaic Soul nature, largely in part due to cultural pressures and societal norms to pick just one path in your lifetime. We are told since childhood that you grow up, you choose a focus when you get to college or a trade, and that's what you do. You do that one trade for the rest of your life. But a lot of that is due to our societal structures and the way that they are built in order to keep our society going in the way that is going. Now, there's nothing wrong with our society if you don't resonate with, changing things. But as a Mosaic Soul, as a divine infinite being who came to play on this playground / earth school called Earth, we are here to really explore many different things. And so this desire or natural soul urge to do so is oftentimes contrary to these societal norms and cultural pressures, right? And so being a Mosaic Soul is really about embracing your multifaceted nature, right? So, for example, ever since I was little, I was always a Mosaic Soul. I've always been into so many different things, from drawing to singing to writing songs to exploring nature and looking at bugs when I was little, to, writing poetry, to writing stories, to so many different things, to dancing, and later on photography and many other things that I picked up along the way. And oftentimes, probably like you were told, oh, well, boy, if you could just pick one thing, you'd really soar. Or, what's your favorite thing out of all the things that you do? Those are usually questions that, at least for me as a Mosaic Soul, always feel so very debilitating, because it's almost like having 10 children and asking which one is your favorite, or which one would you be willing to kill, which ones would you be willing to kill off in order to let the other few survive. And if you're a mother or a father, you know that that's an impossible question to ask, right? And so it feels like your passions, it feels like your explorations are these things that are extensions of you, extensions of your Mosaic soul nature, right? And when you embrace all these different aspects to you, it really brings a sense of richness and diversity to your life that otherwise you would feel sort of deadened from. And there's this also genius kind of quality to Mosaic souls that I notice that many of us have. We have the ability, we're usually very smart and can pick up and do a lot of different things in a lot of different areas or fields. And our interests vary because we are multi-dimensional. We're just really multifaceted, right? So being a Mosaic soul in that of itself definitely has genius-like qualities, but because of our societal structure and, you know, creating worker bees to fit into the cogs and the wheels of our society, our multi-passionate nature, our multi-dimensional nature isn't really embraced, right? And so that's really the struggle that I find that most Mosaic souls find themselves in, right? And so I really want to encourage you to embrace exploration, right? You don't need to choose between your passions. And the reason why is if you can break away from societal or cultural pressures, from either stepping into financial freedom or exiting the societal norms, if you can escape the societal pressures or cultural norms in whatever capacity that looks like for you, to allow yourself to give yourself space to explore your many different passions, you'll find that your soul just naturally gravitates towards different things throughout your life. And maybe you might find that, and Mosaic souls vary in varying degrees. Some dive into one or two different subjects for years on end, and then later on in life they pick up other things. Or some of us juggle multiple things at the same time. There is no right or wrong path to being a Mosaic soul. Like it's saying like which soul is better than the other. There's no right path. Each soul is unique and divine in that of itself, right? So letting go of the idea that you can only do one thing or that you're required to stick to one path forever can be debilitating. And I want to encourage you to let that concept go and to embrace it all, embrace all aspects of you. Every passion is a part of you, and honoring each one is like acknowledging every color in a mosaic, right? Rather than boxing yourself into a single pursuit, give yourself permission to explore, to play, and to follow where your inspiration leads, right? And in doing so, oftentimes, especially if you shift your beliefs to one of the abundance frequency and move into a knowing that you are perfectly divine in the way that you have incarnated to be, you'll find that abundance and many other opportunities and doors open by you just being who you came here to be. But the more that you believe that you can't be all of you, the more that that narrative plays out, right? Because we are creating our own realities, right? So letting go of the rigidity that society often promotes, where focus on one field or skill is seen as a virtue, and there's nothing wrong with the single passionate folks out there, but I find that there's way more Mosaic souls on the planet than there are single passionate people. But just for the sake of this, understanding there's nothing wrong with either path, but I'm specifically speaking to my Mosaic souls, right? So for Mosaic souls, your strength lies in your versatility, your curiosity, your ability to learn across many paths in many areas, and connecting them in ways that others might not see. Like, for example, I put on my first event back in August, as you might know. I put on my first event in a while, which I incorporated poetry, art, music, coaching, transformation, and audience participation. And if I hadn't really let myself explore and let this sort of divine download sink in the way that it was supposed to, I don't think it would have been as effective or as resonant with the souls that it did resonate with for those who did participate, right? And so I find that when you are embracing all of you and embracing your many different Mosaic soul pieces, you'll find that they kind of come together in their own unique way, you know, and you don't necessarily have to come up with the how, you know, and sometimes they might not be related, but in your life, it creates this beautiful tapestry of enrichment and fulfillment that otherwise you wouldn't explore or experience. Another thing that I want to encourage you to do is to embrace being a beginner. So often we avoid trying something new because we fear being bad at it or facing judgment. But what if being a beginner was the key to growth and joy? When you jump into your passions, whether they're new or things you're rediscovering, you're giving yourself permission to be playful, to be vulnerable and open like a child. You're giving yourself permission to play and to just explore and to just do something for the joy of it. And what is life? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life other than to just truly fully live it and to be who you're meant to be? And I feel like a lot of times as adults, we don't give ourselves permission to play and to just explore because we're always overly stressed out about our well-being or stressed out about bills and money, and rightfully so, right? I'm not knocking that those aren't real concerns, but if you can, whatever time you can give yourself to just explore and to play without the pressure of trying to monetize your passions, even if it's just, for 1 hour a week or whatever time you can give yourself to explore, I think it's worthwhile because, what I'm finding even in my own path at this point in time is that I'm getting myself a chance to re-embrace being a beginner. And even though I'm not really a beginner in many of the things that I'm exploring, I love having that childlike mindset because it allows me to play and to explore and to mess up and to discover some gems in the journey of this exploration of the different things that I'm exploring. But if I didn't give myself permission to just play and explore, these gems wouldn't be found. And it's like my soul wouldn't be able to communicate with me, and the gems and the wisdom and the knowledge that is pouring through wouldn't be able to pour through if I didn't give myself the space to just sort of gestate. It's sort of thinking of that time when you're in your mother's womb and it seems like nothing is going on, but a baby is being born. A baby is being, metamorphosized and growing from an amphibian into a human child, right? And it's this whole beautiful gestation period that's necessary, So this journey of beginning over and over again is a beautiful cycle of creativity and growth. And it means you're evolving and refining your skills, your experiences and perspectives, and becoming a master in ways that honor your unique path. So I really want to encourage you to embrace being a beginner in whatever you are deciding to explore, and allowing yourself to explore and give yourself that time to explore before you become a master and before you put that pressure of becoming a master at something. Because when you become a master, there's this sense of structure. There's this sense of set things that you do, set ways that you approach things. And sometimes it can come with a level of rigidity and unwavering energy that doesn't really allow for the playfulness to explore new things. But there's also a beautiful in the mastery, because even with mastery and doing things a set way or having that structure, creativity can flow through that as well. So I'm just inviting you to embrace both aspects, but definitely embrace being a beginner, because I feel like as a society, we definitely embrace being masterful at something, but rarely do we ever allow ourselves to make mistakes, quote unquote, or to explore, to make a mess, or to do whatever it is that we're exploring without the pressures of trying to monetize it or, let others see it and judge it and all that other stuff that whatever we're creating or exploring, right? Another concept that I would love for you to embrace, or at least ponder, is to trust that you're whole as you are. And this is very much so from a spiritual perspective, from a divine perspective. I want to invite you to let go of any notion that you need fixing, or that somehow you're flawed or you're broken for being interested in many things. Like I said before, society sometimes sends the message that to be successful or accepted, we must fit into a certain mold. But as a Mosaic Soul, you're here to break molds. You're here to blaze trails. You're here to carve your own path. You weren't designed to fit in, and you were designed to lead. And leaders naturally stand out. There's nothing wrong with followers. We all can't be leaders. But leaders often follow paths less taken and carve out new roads. So your diverse passions aren't weaknesses, they're actually strengths. the more that you embrace them. And they're your unique way of impacting the world. Your Mosaic flavor, your Mosaic Soul flavor is the only one of its kind. Like, how divine and beautiful is that, right? Your unique color, your unique tapestry of your many different interests and passions and desires are so unique that you were born out of billions and trillions of other, possibilities that could be here. You showed up through your mother's womb and you are here on the planet, right? That in of itself is a miracle. And when you understand the miracle that you are, you start to embrace all of your multifaceted and multi-passionate nature. And you can embrace that you are whole. You are whole. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed just because you don't fit into the societal norms and societal standards and cultural pressures of trying to fit into one box. Yes, if you need to choose a career, or yes, if you need to make money, focus on that for as long as you can in order to get yourself to a place of stability, and then allow yourself to explore and expand and play when you have time. Don't be so rigid and thinking that you must stick to one thing for the rest of your life. And if you find that you just naturally gravitate towards one thing or another over time, or you find that you get bored with things because you mastered them quickly, whatever way that your Mosaic Soul nature shows up, know that there's nothing wrong with that. Or maybe you find that you are into 5 or 10 different things and you get really interested in one thing at one point in time, and then the next week you're on to something else, and then maybe 3 weeks later you come back to that first thing that you were excited about. None of that is wrong. It is only wrong in the eyes of society. And remember, societal norms are simply that, societal norms. But you're a divine infinite being having this human experience. Wouldn't it make sense that as a divine being that you get to create your own reality, that you get to create the world that you live in? So instead of following everybody else's rules or the rules that were laid out before you, why not create your own board game and create your own rules through which you live, right? And you'll find that you start to attract more people who live this way. You'll start to attract more like-minded beings and more examples of Mosaic souls being themselves and not having fear in doing so, and not cowering or shying away from being all of you. And the truth of the matter is, in my experience, having spoken to thousands and thousands of people, most of us on the planet are Mosaic souls, is that we've just been beaten down and trodden down to believe that we aren't, and that we're broken if somehow we have a passion or desire to explore many different things in our lifetimes. Hopefully, most of us live to be 80 plus on the planet, and that's 80 years of your life, right? Like, let's say if you could live up until you're a centurion, 100 years or whatever, that's 100, possibly 100 years that you get to explore many different things, right? But if you are, told that you can only do one thing, and then you feel, somehow life is lackluster or it's not as enriching or fulfilled, it's oftentimes because we have self-imposed limitations and beliefs around who we are meant to be or who and what we're meant to explore, right? One of my favorite quotes by the late and great Maya Angelou is, "We do ourselves a disservice to say that we can only be a master of one thing. We could be a master of 10,000 things if we truly wanted. We limit ourselves and we limit our children because we limit the God within us." And I remember hearing that statement when she was doing an interview. I think I was in high school sometime, and I was listening to her maybe speak to Oprah or someone of eminence or prominence at the time. And I just remember just being in love with Maya Angelou and all of her Mosaic Soul nature. Another quote that she has that I really love is, "If you are always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be." She's such a great person. She has some other really awesome quotes as well. Another one by her is, "You are only free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place, no place at all. The price is high. The reward is great." So all of this is to say, allow yourself to explore your many passions. and to let go of the idea that you're broken, and to let go of this idea that you're not divine. If you recognize that you're a divine, infinite being having this temporary human experience, doesn't it make more sense that you would be multi-passionate? Doesn't it make more sense that you would be multifaceted? Doesn't it make more sense that you would be multidimensional? Like, doesn't that make more sense than just saying that you're here to do one thing? That actually makes way more sense to me than being single passionate. Nothing wrong with being single passionate, but I'm just saying, in the fact that we are divine, infinite beings, wouldn't it make sense that we have infinite potential? So I just want you to chew on that, food for thought. Another section I wanted to share about was balancing your multiple passions and tips for when to focus. So I want to share with you how each passion may have its own cycle or season. Many times we often are berating ourselves or beating up on ourselves because we've been told time and time again that we have to choose between our many passions. But now that we know that that's not an issue, I want to explore giving yourself a break when multiple passions arise and you find that you are putting certain passions on the back burner, right? So maybe you haven't painted or sang or planted a flower or cooked in months, right? Because you have a deep interest in a new passion like cooking, dancing, or coding, or web design, or whatever, right? So who cares, right? Now that we know that we're divine, infinite beings having this human experience, does it really matter what passions that we're passionate about? This doesn't mean that you've lost your love or talent for painting or singing or writing or whatever it is that you're focused on, or used to be focused on rather, but passions go through phases, and sometimes they take center stage while others become background notes in your life symphony. So by allowing yourself to explore and flow with each one as it calls to you, you're creating a life that's authentically yours and rich with discovery. The only real judgment that matters is your own, right? If you're an infinite being having this human experience, the only judgment that matters is your own. And I want to encourage you to give yourself permission to enjoy this dynamic journey. Oftentimes I find that us as Mosaic Souls, we're the ones judging ourselves because we've adopted beliefs that no longer serve our Mosaic Soul nature. When you recognize that you're an infinite being having this human experience, then you recognize that there are going to be different cycles and seasons. Just as you see me painting this autumn painting in the fall time, there's going to be winter and then spring and summer, and it starts all over again, right? And just like in your own Mosaic Soul nature, you have your own ebbs and flows in your passions as well. And that's actually really quite natural as a Mosaic Soul. But because in our society, we're not really embraced as the norm or given space to be exploratory or, explore our passions without being pressured into trying to monetize it. A lot of times we berate ourselves because we think that we're broken or we're not normal or we're, there's something wrong with us. But in reality, you're here to explore many different things. Just take a child, for instance, before the child is being beaten senseless into believing that they can't pursue their many passions. A child naturally gravitates between one passion and the next. One time they're maybe playing video games, and the next time they're over playing with their building blocks, and the next thing you know, they're drawing, and the next thing they're outside playing with some bugs, and the next thing they want to help you in the kitchen make some cookies, and the next thing they're maybe singing and dancing, right? Children naturally explore their Mosaic Soul nature quite effortlessly. It's only because we are trodden and beaten down into thinking that we can't explore our many passions that we don't allow our natural exploration to take center stage and to allow what passions arise naturally. For example, in my earlier years, I really was focused in on being a musician, singer-songwriter, and composer, and I actually went to college for that. But when after graduated, I actually got more into web design and graphic design and photography and videography and other things like that. And so my music started to take a back seat in a lot of the things that I was doing. And for years, I wasn't, producing music as to the degree that I was when I was in college and even shortly after. But now, over the last 3 or 4 years, I've picked it back up, right? But only me would I be having to deal with my own self-judgment and anyone else who might be reflecting back to me my own self-judgments, right? A lot of times we don't recognize that we get judgment from others, but really they're just reflecting back to us our own unchecked beliefs about ourselves. So when we recognize that there are natural seasons, natural ebbs and flows to our Mosaic Soul nature, you let go of the rigidity and let go of the self-berating and self-judgment around your passions taking center stage from one point to another. You know, sometimes you're juggling multiple ones at the same time, and sometimes just one or two or three are at the forefront, right? While the others are at the back front, and that's perfectly fine. They'll come up at another time, or sometimes they won't come up at all, and that's also perfectly fine. One of my another book that I would encourage you to check out is Refuse to Choose. And in that book, she talks about, you know, letting go of this idea that you have to choose between your many passions. And there's many ways that you can give yourself space to explore your passions. But one of them that she does mention in the book is if you need to get a steady job that has nothing to do with your passions. You know, some Mosaic Souls like to just do a mindless activity job that has nothing to do with their passions. That way they can conserve their energy for their actual passions. If that's you, that's an option as well. Or just seeking financial freedom in whatever way makes sense to you. Or another path is reducing your expenses so much so that you don't even need that much money. And so when you do make enough money, you are financially free already because your expenses, you know, are so low. So there's many pathways to allowing yourself to explore your many passions, but I just wanted to give those as options as well. Another thing I wanted to go ahead and dive into is tips for building a business without feeling limited. So I want to first explain the importance of selecting a few interests as primary focuses for income and how this doesn't limit you. It just helps you establish stability. So when you're building a business, right, while freedom to explore all your interests is essential for your life, like your full life, your tapestry of your life, when you're focused in on building a business, some focus is really necessary, right? So it's not because you're trying to limit yourself, but because a certain level of dedication is required to get any business venture off the ground. So think of it as bringing some structure to your creativity, not to stifle it, but to give it a chance to grow and become sustainable. So here you really want to choose 1, 2, 3, at most 4 pursuits to build as a solid foundation. And once they're established, you can return to your other interests or expand into new areas with greater sense of stability, right? So for example, in my own life, the event that I just put on in August, right? For that event, I was exploring 4 of my main different passions. They were poetry, visual art, singing, songwriting, production. That's really like 4, 3 in that of itself, but we'll just lump that into one. And then also coaching, right? And so for that event, I did all 4 of those passions, and they melded together for my event, which I monetized and which was very lucrative for me, right? So by me focusing in on those 3 to 4 things that I had achieved some level of mastery in, right? It allowed me to create this event that was turned into a successful venture, right? So that's just one example. Another example is like, let's say you want to turn your passion for art into a business. Maybe perhaps you focus on creating and marketing your paintings first, or, building out a portfolio so that you can market your portfolio to other businesses, or, to get licensed, whatever it is that you do, you want to focus in on that to get the money rolling in as a business to become profitable, right? Another example is if you're a cook, right? Let's say you love cooking, finding your first 5 to 10 clients who want a personal chef allows you to then maybe later on, if you really love teaching, then you can add cooking classes or art classes. Once you're making steady income, you might look into expanding into incorporating your love for teaching, right? If that is a passion, right? So business really requires building blocks, but remember, this structure is just a part of the bigger mosaic soul of your life, the bigger mosaic of your life, right? It doesn't mean you're abandoning other interests, but rather you're giving yourself a way to sustain and fund all the beautiful explorations you want to continue. Now, if building a business is not your thing, you don't have to build a business. I feel like there's a lot of mosaic souls who just like working for other people and getting to explore their passions on the side. And I think that's a very valid way of living. There is no one right path for Mosaic Souls. It's just about figuring out what works best for you. But I just wanted to give these tips in terms of building a business, right? Another thing I wanted to explore is when not to monetize a passion, right? It's also okay to keep some passions just for yourself. Not every interest needs to become a product, service, or a side hustle, right? Holding on to a few passions purely for the joy allows you to keep that sacred space for creativity without pressure. And I think this intimacy of connection with your passions and of having something solely for yourself can be deeply rewarding and create a safe space for vulnerability and self-discovery, oftentimes that we don't give ourselves the space to have. And I think that's very important as creative beings, as divine infinite beings, to have this sort of sacred space of gestation, this sacred space of exploration, this sacred space of vulnerability, this sacred safe space to quote unquote make mistakes, this sacred space of self-discovery and exploration, right? And I think knowing when not to monetize is really important. And I think you'll know because it will feel like, oh, I really just love doing this for myself. I really don't want to monetize it. I don't really feel called to put it out into the world or to get feedback, because it's sort of like once you monetize something, then you're opening your creation or whatever you're doing for feedback from others. And sometimes you don't want other people's feedback. You don't want other people's critique, or you don't need that, for fulfillment and joy. And so that's kind of when you know that, whatever it is that you're passionate about is something that you're just doing for yourself, right? Or maybe just doing for a few loved ones. Like I know people who I'm into tarot as well and tarot reading, people who don't really love doing tarot reading for other people. They just want to read for themselves and maybe a few friends and family members. They don't want to be a professional tarot reader, right? Or, people like for me, when I actually started yoga and got into yoga, like at least right now, actually for the first, I guess it's almost 10 years that I've been certified as a yoga practitioner. But for the first 6 or 7 years, I really didn't get into yoga for other people. It really was a soul and spiritual calling. I didn't get into yoga to become a yoga teacher. I got into yoga because my soul led me to get into yoga and to deepen my connection with my divinity in a way that was sort of self-affirming. Everything that I had already been exploring and learning was deepening, and it was self-affirming in a lot of ways, because it was like I was being shown things that my soul had already showed me, but there was actually terminology and history to support it, right? And so for me, yoga was just a passion that I really kept for myself. And though I was invited to do a few classes, and I did a few classes, and I'm actually thinking about doing more classes on my YouTube channel. We'll see if that actually is something that brings me joy or not. But it really has just been something that I do for myself. It's not been something that I necessarily wanted to personally monetize. It's just something that brings me joy and that helps me feel deeply connected to myself in a way that, I wouldn't otherwise have. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about was just embracing your Mosaic soul and avoiding self-judgment. And really, I just want to reiterate to give yourself the freedom to explore without self-criticism. Let go of the judgment that you have on yourself for being multi-passionate, for being multifaceted, for having many different passions, for going from one passion to the next. I really want to emphasize that the only judgment that really matters is your own. And so if you're your own worst critic, then of course you're going to attract other people to reflect back to you your own energy, right? So instead of having energy of self-criticism and judgment, I want to encourage you to be more compassionate, encouraging, self-loving, and giving yourself space to explore and to be yourself as you would a child. We all still have that inner child within us, our inner hearts. Our hearts is sort of this pure part of us that still loves to explore and expand and to discover new things and new ways of doing things. And the more that you embrace this aspect of you, the more that you find that your life is truly fulfilled, truly enriched, and that you just really enjoy your life more, right? And I find that, everyone's here for their own reason and their own purpose, and you have to define what your life purpose is for. But for me, a big core part of my life's purpose is to really enjoy my life, to really live my life and live it to the fullest, in the sense that I'm creating life experiences and memories that feel really enriching and enlivening, right? That I'm not just a robot that's operating in the system, another cog in the wheel of the societal norm, and that I'm really truly just being who my soul desires for me to be, right? Another thing I wanted to share with you is just tips for staying inspired and managing self-critique. So there's a few ways that you can stay inspired when juggling your multiple interests. And I think, social media and things of that nature has really helped in this way. But I definitely want to encourage you to be more self-monitoring when it comes to social media, because it can be an addictive thing. Most of social media platforms are designed to be addictive, so that you and your attention span gets shorter and shorter and shorter while you're on these platforms, and your ability to stay focused and to actually be in the present moment gets shorter and shorter and shorter. So I would say just have self-monitored social media platforms, or even, getting something like Notion or other things like Evernote and stuff, and saving links to your favorite artists, saving links to your favorite, fill in the blank, whatever it is, who inspire you, and keeping sort of a note or a journal or something of the people who are inspired by, whether it's musicians or artists or, speakers or whatever, and just keeping a journal of the people who inspire you. And then when you feel like you need a hit of inspiration, go back to that list and then pull up some of their most recent things or old things that you really like. One of the things I've been doing a lot is just listening to a lot of old albums that I really loved when I was in earlier in my life, right? And going back and listening to old music and being like, oh my God, I love music. I'm falling in love with music all over again. So, or, I keep a running list of some of my favorite artists that I love. And so when I feel I want to be inspired, I kind of go to their social media and just see what new art things that they've posted, right? I'm not on social media every day, skimming every 5 seconds so that I can't focus in on doing my passions, but I do have a running list that helps me to stay inspired when I do. Another thing is celebrating small wins, recognizing progress, and practicing self-compassion. If you don't celebrate your small wins, like me finishing this painting or, putting on a show or, getting my first sale or whatever it is that you are doing, then you're not going to really stick with whatever it is that you're doing, because you're going to be in this place of self-judgment all the time. And judgment and berating yourself doesn't allow for creativity to flourish, right? So you really want to practice self-compassion and recognize the progress that you are making, especially if you're in the beginner phase of your passion. Recognize that progress is a part of the journey. Making mistakes, messing up is a part of the journey. And that's actually the beautiful aspect of the journey, because through mistakes, you actually discover your own style, your own unique way of doing things, right? I think that's one of the main things I remember listening to a lot of, musicians and artists who didn't go to college or, go to a secondary education for their art, is a lot of times they felt like the people who did go to school, they felt more stifled and their creativity was deadened because they had too much structure, too much rigidity, or too much critique from other people, that they didn't even give themselves enough space to explore and mess up so that they could find their own style, they could find their own voice, right? So I think that it's sort of a thin line between, finding your own voice and almost snuffing out your creativity. So definitely practice self-compassion and give yourself space to explore. And last thing, I just want to reiterate that embracing your multiple passions isn't a flaw. It's actually a strength. It's who you are created to be, right? You're a divine, infinite being with infinite potential, having this limited human experience for this short temporary time. And I want to invite you to acknowledge that it can take time to fully accept this about yourself, but once you do, it's totally worth it. So ultimately, if you're a Mosaic Soul, living fully means embracing every aspect of yourself without apology. You have permission to move from one passion to another. This is your permission slip if you need one. You have permission to learn, to grow, and to experiment. And these are not signs of flakiness, but of a unique intelligence and adaptability. Each passion informs and enriches the others and helps you master things quickly and creatively. So as you embrace each facet of yourself, remember you are building a mosaic that is dynamic, ever evolving, and beautifully complex and uniquely you. So keep on shining your light, and I will talk to you guys soon. Peace, love, and light. Hey Mosaic Souls, if you're ready to stop feeling scattered, overwhelmed, or like you have to choose just one passion, I have something special for you. My free mini course, the Mosaic Soul Starter Kit, is designed to help you embrace all of who you are authentically without the stress. You'll discover the 3 essences of a Mosaic Soul, the sacred steps to unleash your full potential, and debunk the myths holding you back. Plus, it comes with powerful videos and interactive soul sheets to guide you every step of the way. So if you're ready to thrive as your whole self, sign up at the link in the description box below, and let's help you create a life that you really love. If you resonate with this video and my work, then consider becoming a patron at mosaicsoulsworld.com. Thanks to my current patrons, and I hope to see you guys on the inside. Catch you next week. Peace, love, and light.